Okay, so who thinks I ought to make the test easier? I don't really care. I was just wondering what you think. I'm not making it easier. Not going to make it easier. What does that mean? That if you get out here and negotiating deals that the seller's going to have mercy on you because you don't know the answers? We're going to talk about deferring some taxes when we do these deals. Then I want to go through some things that I don't want you to do, things that would stand in your way, cause you to fail, before we call it a day. Somebody said a while ago, we were talking in the bathroom, and I think he made that test so hard just to show us how stupid we were and how much we need a partner. I didn't have that in mind, but it isn't actually a bad idea. All right. Let's talk about your IRA and the use of it as it relates to doing what we do. Now, there's some good stuff and some bad stuff about using your IRA. And first of all, do any of you ever want to buy a property and title it to your IRA? Absolutely not. That's a dumb thing to do. You don't ever have any entity that has other assets in it on title to a property on public record. Ever. So if your IRA is going to own this property, there's several things you should know. Number one, the property's got to be in an entity, and the IRA owns that entity. However, please keep in mind that any property your IRA owns that comes with debt is going to trigger UBIT and cause you to pay income taxes on the gain, which is going to apply to almost every commercial property you buy, isn't it? I'll say it again. If your IRA owns a property and that property comes with debt, you trigger UBIT, unrelated business income tax, and that transaction will be taxed. The same as if you take a house subject to in your IRA. So who thinks it's a good idea for your IRA to own a property in a land trust? It's a bad idea. Now, it's not that bad of an idea. Let's say you sell a property that you bought in a land trust and your IRA owns the land trust and you make $1 million profit. And it came with a debt. And the debt got paid off when you sold. Well, you're going to pay taxes on that gain. But the remainder goes in your IRA tax-free for life. Now, you got to think about this. If I make $1 million and pay $350,000 taxes, and then $650,000 goes in my IRA, that $650,000 grows for the rest of my life, and I pay no tax on it, and no tax on that gain, and no tax on that gain, and no tax on that gain forever. So that ain't all that bad, is it? Considering doing it outside your IRA, where you pay tax on that gain, and then you make more money, and you pay tax on that gain, and you're taxed, and you're taxed, and you're taxed. So even if you're taxed, it's not the end of the world for sure. If you're going to get taxed, better to get taxed in your IRA than out of your IRA. As long as you know you're going to get taxed if your IRA buys a property with a debt. Next warning is you can't take $100 out of your IRA and buy $1 million property with it and expect the IRS to bless it. They are not going to do that. That's an obvious tax scam. So if you're going to buy a property in your IRA, there's several things you can do. Number one, you can not buy a property in your IRA. You can just have your IRA option the property. If your IRA options the property from an entity, there is no debt that comes with the deal, and all the profit goes into your IRA. However, if your IRA options a property from an entity, you have controlling interest in, it's self-dealing. So, next quandary, if I buy this property in an LLC and my IRA options that property from that LLC, I can't have controlling interest in the LLC. And by the way, husband and wife total equals controlling interest. So husband and wife combined can't have controlling interest in it if you don't want to pay income taxes on it. If your IRA options the property from an LLC, you do have controlling interest in it. You can do that, pay income taxes on it, and still have the money go into your IRA. Keep in mind now, your IRA doesn't pay income taxes.
Just repeat that last sentence.
Okay. If your IRA options a property from an entity that you have controlling interest in, you will have to pay taxes on that gain when that sale is taking place. If your IRA makes $1 million from this option, your IRA is going to pay taxes on that $1 million. But the rest of it still goes in the IRA and grows tax-free for life. We've covered that. If you don't want the IRA to pay any taxes, the entity it options from, you cannot have controlling interest. You can have an interest, but it can't be a controlling interest. And controlling interest is defined as anybody in your linear descent. If everybody in your linear descent combined has controlling interest, it's the same as you. So where does that leave us? What are our choices? Okay. Is doing a land development project something you should do in your IRA? All right, who says yes? Who says no? Who don't know? And who's so screwed up after that test they don't even want to know? All right. The answer is yes and no. The answer is no if you think you're going to do it and avoid income taxes. The answer is yes if you don't mind paying the income taxes, knowing that the rest of it's going to go in the IRA tax-free for life. Your IRA can run a business and own a business. But if it does, the business is going to pay income taxes. But the remainder goes in the IRA tax-free for life. So let's don't be under the assumption that it's a bad deal just because we're paying taxes. It's always a better deal to pay taxes inside the IRA once on the seed, so the crop grows forever tax-free. And frankly, if you want to avoid a scam period, then just pay the taxes and forget about the IRS ever challenging it. You paid the taxes. Now, and then you have another option if you want to avoid the taxes. Just don't own controlling interest in the entity that owns the property. You may control it, but you can't own a controlling interest. Do you understand what I'm saying and putting on tape? You know, you pick who owns the entity that owns the property, don't you? For example, your brothers and sisters can own that whole entity. That is not you, and that is not your linear family. As long as you can tell your brothers and sisters what to do, you're still in control, aren't you? But not legally. Not technically. If you know the rules clearly, then it's easy to figure out a way to do it without breaking the rules. But if you don't know the rules, then you better darn sure get some help. Now, let's suppose I know I'm going to buy a property and I'm going to take title in an LLC. If the LLC buys the property and then you try to sell stock in the LLC to the IRA and put up $100, that dog ain't going to hunt. But what if your IRA puts up $100 and buys stock in a worthless, dead LLC that don't have any assets in it? And then 2 months later, that LLC buys a property. Well, that dog will hunt, but there's a big problem with that too. Where's the money going to come from so the LLC can buy the property? If it's your money or you get a loan, that's self-dealing. You can't get a loan on a property that your IRA owns. And you can't use your money to buy a property your IRA owns. You guys keeping up? Okay. So then, how do we get the money in our IRA tax-free? The answer is, well, actually there's several things. This LLC, well, first of all, you can have money in this LLC, and not a lot of it. You know, you can't open an LLC with $100,000 in it and have the IRA buy, you know, a big share of that for $100. That dog ain't gonna hunt either. But let's say you open an LLC and your IRA puts up half of a $5,000 deposit in the LLC, and your spouse's IRA puts up the other half. And combined, you only own 49% of the total LLC. Combined. So you don't own controlling interest. And now later that LLC goes out and buys a property that does not require its capital because it doesn't have much. Maybe the LLC goes and takes over the debt subject to that doesn't require any money to go to the seller. Or maybe the LLC goes and buys a property, takes over debt, and gives the seller back a mortgage. You see, the LLC can originate debt, even if the IRA owns the stock. It's the IRA that can't originate debt. So my LLC can go take over debt, and it can give the seller back a mortgage, but I can't go borrow money and have this property belong to my IRA. I can't even borrow money if my IRA is related to this thing. My LLC could borrow money, but I mean, that would be non-recourse debt. I can't borrow money. I can't personally guarantee that loan. I mean, you know, guys, just for the record, you can do anything you want. And there's a real good chance you'd never get caught. In fact, there's a slim chance you'll get caught. But if you're going to do it and you're going to bury the skeletons, you ought to know where they're buried, don't you think? The IRS is not auditing IRAs. But then there's the legal side and there's the not so legal side. It's really not that difficult to maneuver around the legal side. So the easiest thing for you to do is to buy a property in an entity and make sure you don't have controlling interest in the entity. Now, all of you can do that, can't you? The LLC or an S Corp or C Corp, I don't even care. We went over that. Get yourself 49%, yourself meaning all of your linear family. And then have the IRA option the property from that entity for $100. That's all it takes. And then when it sells, the profit goes in the IRA. That's the easiest, cleanest thing to do. Now, just for the record, we're living by the IRS code. We're doing the things that we're allowed to do. Can anything we do be challenged? You are? Yeah, well, okay. Knowing that, we do the best we can to live within the code, but hey, isn't our chances of ever being challenged and have anything we do overturned a whole lot better than go ahead and pay the taxes now and be done with it, huh? Well, believe me, IRS has got plenty to worry about. They don't even know we're doing this stuff in our IRAs. I mean, they didn't create the Roth IRA for people like us that know how to leverage and buy assets without using the IRA's money. They created a Roth IRA for America to invest in the stock market tax-free by putting taxable income in now so they can take it out later not taxed. See, when they thought this up, they didn't know how to take $100 and leverage it into $1 million. That wasn't their plan. Now, so could they change that plan any time? Certainly. By the way, Dick Desies from Equity Trust telling me that he's got several IRAs with over $20 million in them. Now, just for the record, you can't live long enough to contribute $20 million to your IRA. So how do they get that money in those IRAs? By using their brain and leveraging their IRA as the mechanism to control the real estate so that all the profit goes in the IRA tax-free forever. The steps are real simple. If you go buy a property in an entity, all right, first of all, somewhere along the line you have to decide that the money's going to go in the IRA. It don't have to be immediately. You don't have to know the money's going to go in the IRA even the day you close. If you close in an entity that you don't own 100% control or controlling interest in, you can do this IRA crap later. But if you close in an entity and anybody has a LLC agreement that shows that you own 100% of that LLC, I would not then try to maneuver that money into that IRA. If you close in your own name, forget about it. It's a matter of public record you own this property. So you should know that you're going to put the money in the IRA before you actually take title to the property. Now, of course, you know as well as I do that any document that's created today can be thrown away and burnt and another one created later, but I don't want to get into that. Remember that operating agreement and that LLC agreement is housed where? In your filing cabinet at home. So here's the steps. I know I'm going to want this property, all the money to go in my IRA tax-free. I go negotiate a deal and I close on it. And I structure this deal so that I know that I don't have to write a check to fund it, and that I'm not going to personally guarantee a debt to fund it. Which means that I've got to buy this property so that it doesn't require my money, or I got to get a private loan that don't require my personal signature. Which isn't that hard to do. Now, I close in an LLC. My wife and I are 49% owners of the LLC. Somewhere well in advance of selling this property, and before I file my tax return for this year, I get on Equity Trust website, assuming when you have an IRA set up at Equity Trust, which I'm sure most of you are certainly aware of or should be aware of. I go to trustetc.com, trustetc.com, and I fill out a direction of investment letter right online there and tell them to send $100 of the money that's in my Roth IRA to the LLC manager made out to the LLC as option money to option this property. Now, if I bought a property worth $1 million and my purchase price on the property was $700,000, comprised of possibly seller financing for all of it or private funds non-guaranteed plus seller financing or subject to debt takeover even. Remember, the LLC can take over the debt. Your IRA can't. Your LLC's buying the property. Your IRA is simply buying memberships in the LLC. What should my option price be on this property where my IRA options it from the LLC? Oh, I'd probably make it $710,000. Because it just doesn't look right if the LLC doesn't make any money and the IRA gets it all. Now the LLC sells the property for $1 million. Oh, by the way, you've also got to now fill out an option agreement, of which you can get in my Blue Course or in any stationery store on the planet, that says that Equity Trust, for your benefit, is optioning this building for $710,000 from the LLC that owns it. It's 1 or 2 page deal, guys. By the way, you can't screw it up. It's you and you and you. Equity Trust is not going to take the option agreement to an attorney and have them check it out. They're going to stick it in the file. Nobody cares. Just fill it out. But Equity Trust, FBO, for benefit of you, IRA, is optioning the property from the LLC. $100 deposit. That deposit needs to come out of your IRA and go to the LLC. And it should be deposited in the LLC's bank account. Tracking trail. Now you sell it, $1 million, got a buyer, going to closing. The day before closing, you call up the title company. You fax them over the option agreement, and you tell them, here's how I want the proceeds distributed. I want $10,000 to go to the LLC. I want the $700,000 debt paid off, of course. And then I want the $290,000 to be made out to Equity Trust, FBO, Ron LeGrand, IRA. Got it? Now, here comes $290,000 into your Roth IRA tax-free for life. Got it? Can you manage that process? It was really tough, wasn't it? The only thing was tough was structuring the deal to begin with so you don't get accused of self-dealing. The rest of it's just paperwork, logistic crap. There's no limit how much your IRA can make a year, ladies and gentlemen. And don't forget, contribution is $4,000, but there's no limit how much profit you can make. You know, you do one of these deals and you make $2, $3, $4, $5, $10 million profit. There's no law says it cannot 100% go into your IRA. LLC is going to pay whopping taxes on $10,000 because that's all the profit it made. Everybody got it? Can you do it? All right.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
$10,000 in your IRA does not necessarily need to be distributed to the 51% owner. It just stays in there, right?
$10,000 goes into the LLC.
I mean into the LLC, the $10,000
I don't know who
profit.
owns that. Don't care as long as it's not 100% you.
Okay,
If
so
it's
it could just-
49% you, 49% goes, well, it goes in the LLC's bank account.
Right.
What the manager of that does is irrelevant to this deal. Yes, sir?
I attended the IRA thing in Orlando.
Yes.
It seemed like the focus there was putting them into a land trust and have the beneficiary of the land trust.
That's because we were talking about single-family houses. Now we're
Okay.
talking about buildings big enough to be their own entity and have their own tax return and so forth. Could you do the same thing in a land trust? Yes, you could, as long as you're not any more than 49% beneficial interest. Yes, sir?
So the Roth IRA then does not own actual stock in the LLC or
Yeah,
membership?
Roth IRA absolutely owns stock in the LLC.
It does.
Yes, but it
Not
doesn't
the
own any
option.
property.
Owns the option and stock in the LLC.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. If I optioned it from the LLC, it does not. You're correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You're correct. It owns an option. A real little old simple option. Okay. One more.
I just wanted to add that I've done several of these successfully, and my closing attorney always requires that the Roth IRA do an assignment of option to purchase over to the end buyer for the fee that's going, for the amount that's going into the Roth,
Fine.
for it to be totally complete, because technically the IRA has the option and you
He's
have
right.
to assign it.
He's right. You do whatever your closing agent tells you, as long as they make the check out to the Roth IRA. And incidentally, don't even think about letting them make it out to you now. If they make a check out to you or the LLC, take it back and tell them to make it out right. You don't want that money going in that LLC and then going to your IRA. That's a no-no. You don't want that money going in your bank account and going to the IRA. That's a contribution, excess, and none of it will count except for $4,000. So it must come directly from the closing agent into the IRA as profit from that option. Yes, sir?
Ron, could I have an LLC composed of 4 partners at 25% each, and then have a pool of IRAs by optioning a property from that LLC and distributing that money into those 4 partners' IRA accounts?
If 4 partners own an option on the property, 4 partners get the profits distributed into their IRAs if their IRAs own the options, just the same as one would. It don't matter how many partners are in it. It matters that the profits are distributed equal to the investment. That means each partner has to have $100 in it to make it an equal 25% distribution. One of the partners in all of these deals that I fail to mention should be your spouse. Your spouse's IRA should option 50% of the deal, and your IRA should option 50%. So that when the money comes in, it splits equally and goes into each IRA. So you never have to hear, how come your deal was bigger than my deal? It's a great idea. Desich taught me that after it was too late. I learned a lot from Dick on his IRA stuff. I've literally become an expert on it, and I didn't mean to. I mean, I'd almost rather be a dentist than be an expert on IRAs. Almost. But somehow all the years I've been teaching it so long, and I've learned all this stuff that it's just kept adding and adding and adding. And now I just did this recently, this course. By the way, I do have a course. Hey, that's right. I got something else to sell here today. Okay, get out your credit cards and hand them to someone who'll be coming down the aisle to pick them up. Here's what I got, and I swear I don't know why they're not here. They're supposed to have been here. How many of you have already picked up my IRA course? Only been out about 3 weeks. Okay. Here's what it consists of. I did an all-day seminar with Dick Desich in Orlando, and no, I talked the most, he talked the least. Those of you who know Dick, he's not the most exciting guy to listen to, but he's the smartest guy I know on this subject. So I had him there as the expert, and we covered over 75 questions that day. Every possible question you could ask about an IRA. We went through the step-by-step process of all kinds of properties, including those with debt and those without debt, to get them inside the IRA, the penalties, the sneaky ways to do things and comply with the law. In other words, I created this course so you could understand it. So now you can take this thing and go right to the table of contents, go right to the question or problem you're having. In my manual, I got 100 hours in just the manual that I created. In addition to that manual, I attached the IRS code so that you can refer to the code to tell your CPA when he gives you a bunch of crap, look, man, it's right here. Read it. Read it. It's the code. It's the same code you use. The whole book on the code is like that. And then I also included Dick's book in there. Covers a lot of stuff that I didn't cover in this because I didn't see the need. His book alone sells for $30 on his website. So it's a 5 CD set, professionally done and professionally edited. It sells for $9.97. I've sold some for $6.97. You guys can buy it for $6.97 here, and you can also use those certificates for those of you who want them up here if you haven't used them yet. Toward that. Order them and we'll ship them to you before you leave. Everybody in this room would be foolish not to have this inexpensive course that's probably got everything you ever want to know. By the way, it's got the forms and everything in it. Everything you ever want to know about IRAs. Frankly, I don't know how or why you'd want to know more than it's in this course, because it's really directed to you guys, real estate entrepreneurs, residential and commercial. Yes, sir?
Ron, those of us who attended that day in Orlando,
Yeah.
then you've already supplied us with that stuff.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything missing that you now added?
Nope.
So what we already have.
If you ordered the CDs that day, you got
Yes,
those.
I did.
Nope.
Yes, I did.
The 3 books. Well, I don't know. Let's see. You got the manual. You got the IRS. But yeah, you didn't get Dick Desich's book.
That's what I thought we
That's
didn't
the only
get.
thing missing. Yeah, you're okay.
That's the only thing missing.
You're okay. 1031 exchanges briefly. Here's another way that you can sell properties without paying, and by the way, guys, this applies to properties you currently own as well as ones you currently buy. So if you missed the IRA window, if you are so screwed up on that you can't figure out how to do it, you won't get help, you can always 1031 exchange your properties and not pay taxes on them. And you can literally do that till you die. In fact, the hotel we bought in San Francisco is a 1031 exchange. When they close on that, they got 45 days to name their next purchase. This is a big REIT. They'll find something. The Amoco building, I read the contract last night. It's a 1031 exchange. And this REIT doesn't want to pay taxes on their sale. Imagine that. And frankly, I can't imagine why anybody who hasn't bought their property in an IRA would sell a big old property and not do a 1031 exchange on it. Because here's how simple that is. And incidentally, I brought you a publication. Has this been handed out? You know what? I can't imagine what you'd want to know about 1031 exchanges that aren't in here. This is layman's language. You read it when you get a chance. It's a beautiful publication. And let's see. 1031 Corporation Exchange Professionals. Not only is a beautiful publication I stole, but there's some folks that can make it happen for you right there. Nationwide. They don't even know I'm giving you this. I didn't think I'd need their permission to hand out a sales pitch for them. But this is a great, I read this thing. You know, I was impressed with all the questions they answered from a real estate investor's point of view, and they covered the stuff that needed to be covered. And it's not that big and thick, you know, so treasure that. And here's the rules. It's really simple. There's not that much you need to know. Number one, you got to identify it as an exchange property on the purchase and sale agreement. That's it. If you do that, that doesn't force you to exchange it. It just paves the way in case you do find a property in time to meet the exchange rules. So what does that cost? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just make sure your attorney puts an exchange paragraph in your contract when you get ready to sell. Okay? Now you go to closing. You don't get the money. Goes into an escrow account. Incidentally, you got to have somebody working with you on this now. You need an exchange agent to help you make it work. Somebody to escrow the money. Now you go to closing. Let's say you make $1 million. Now the downside is you don't get the $1 million. At least not right away. Okay? It goes into an escrow account. Now you got 45 days to name the property you're going to buy. To name it. You got 45 days to find a property. Now, could you be looking for that property long before you even go to closing? And should you, if you know you're going to close? Of course. In fact, how many of you have you been out here and you've heard people say, "Hey, we got an exchange situation here. A guy's got $1.2 million. He's got to buy a property." Well, it's common. You see, you kind of got them. They got to find something. Here's their situation. They got to find something to buy, or they got to give up 35% of that money to the government. It's ugly. And if I'm going to do an exchange, I'm going to be looking way in advance of the sale so that I'm not pushed into that 45 days to identify something that I'd really rather not buy. Now, the theory is that you got to buy something bigger than you sold. That's not a requirement, but if you don't, you might have to pay some taxes, but not all. I mean, better pay some than all. And of course, you got to close on that property you named within 180 days. You want to say something, Barney?
Yeah.
Is that
when
my
it comes to this thing about looking for your property in advance, what a lot of people don't realize, if you have a property that you already have an option on, you can go ahead and use that as your exchange property. So if you happen to have 20 or 30 houses under lease option, you could just go ahead and buy those houses to fulfill your exchange requirement.
You can also do a reverse exchange.
Yeah.
You can describe a reverse exchange, Barney. Barney's a CCIM.
The idea of the reverse exchange is that you find the property that you want to buy first and identify that and put that into escrow. Then you go out and find your purchaser of your property. And you're just doing the same thing but backwards.
Yeah. You can exchange any kind of real estate for any kind of real estate.
The whole concept of tax-deferred exchange is if you've held a property for investment purposes, it can be exchanged for another property to be held for investment purposes, as long as you don't get any unlike-kind property.
Good point.
Unlike-kind
Good point.
property would be boot, like cash or personal property, etc.
You also can't exchange a subdivision for a apartment complex.
Because it's got to be investment property, and subdivision is looked at as dealer property. But the interesting thing is that you're taxed to the extent of gain or boot. So if you had $100,000 of taxable activity within the exchange of realized but not recognized tax in the exchange, and you got a car with $25,000, you're taxed on the $25,000. You're not taxed on the whole 100. So you're taxed to the extent of gain or boot, whichever is less.
Yeah, I bet you guys didn't know this either. You can exchange personal property for personal property as long as it's business property.
Right, 'cause it's
You can
considered
exchange
inventory.
airplanes for airplanes.
Yeah, if you can make it inventory, that's what you do.
In fact, I almost exchanged an airplane for an airplane. Didn't like the airplane I was exchanging to. As long as the airplane's business, of course. And who would own an airplane that isn't business? Not me. Yes, sir.
Ron, I've got a property that's going to go to sale pretty soon, and I want to do a 1031 exchange in it. What I would really want to do, I've got some commercial property that I really want to build a small office complex on. And one of the things that I want to do that I wanted to check to see if I could is rent my wife's company a space in the building that I exchange and buy. I want to have it built and have someone build it, knowing that I'm going to purchase it. And I just want to know, would there be any?
I don't know. Barney would be
with?
better equipped to answer that. Really, all you're worried about is your wife being part of a property you have in this exchange.
Right. Is that going to be too close? Is that going to be too close to this? And it will be to her corporation. She won't have any ownership, and her corporation won't have any ownership.
What do you think, Barney?
You have no problems in doing that, except for there's been some court cases. Your rent has to be within 10% of market value. You can gift her up to 10% of market value by favorable rent. Well, that's the only, and you can charge her however much more you can get her to pay. But that's the only court case that's dealing with relatives that you can't use it to disguise a gift.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else got any questions on the IRAs or the exchanges?
Not a question, but a comment. I don't know whether you've used this 1031 Exchange Corporation, Ron, but I have. I've used them a few times.
This company, you mean?
This particular company.
I have not.
They're a very reliable company. I know because I did one with them last week. They do about 1,500 of these things every month.
Wow.
So they know what they're doing. They're very reliable.
I'm impressed.
The guy that I deal with is a fellow called Drew, for Andrew McCabe.
Okay.
So I doubt he'll give me anything for telling you
I'll
his
tell you
name,
one thing. They know how
but
to
I
pick
just
a
know him to
company
be a
name.
good communicative guy.
Okay.
And they also do reverses, and they know how to do them.
Yeah, well, thank them for this information and tell them I distributed it. Tell them not to sue me for copyright because there ain't no copyright on here.
Ron, in the IRA,
Yeah.
who or what can be appointed as a controlling interest if you have no one to appoint?
Anybody except somebody in your linear descent.
But what if you have no person? Can it be other than a human?
It can be held by a human or it can be held by an entity as long as you don't control the entity.
Okay.
Look, it's this simple. If you do control it, you're violating the rules, regardless of how you control it. People ask me questions all the time. Well, can I slime this thing through a company and pretend like I don't control the company? You can do all that. You can also rob convenience stores, which is the dumbest thing any criminal could ever do. I mean, think about how stupid you got to be to rob a convenience store. Number one, they got cameras looking at you. Number two, there ain't no money there. There ain't no money there. Number three, the people behind the counter usually will shoot you. Never mind. Yes, Barn.
Just prove that, then I'll sit down and shut up.
All right.
I love this. I got it out of the Bar Journal. True story. They're on the witness stand is the lady who worked at the convenience store. And the prosecuting attorney said to the lady, says, "Are the people who robbed you in this courtroom today?" And the two defendants raised their hand.
I believe it, Barney. I believe it. Oh, criminy. Oh, God. Well, I guess that's why they're criminals. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about some causes of failure and mistakes to avoid. And then we're going to close up shop here. Number one, you're here, you've been here for 4 days, you've seen all these big deals, and you're excited, and you want to go home and do the big deals, right? Yes. Okay. Well, you better not forget the little deals. Because the little deals are what produces cash flow, they're what pays your bills, they're what keeps you out of a mess, and they're what free you up to mentally do some big deals as you can make the time and or process the facts. I do not want you to forget to dance with the one who brung you. You guys are very lucky, in my opinion, to be in a position to know what you know. And I don't want you to ruin all of that by ignoring your cash flow. For some of you, it's not an issue. For some of you, others of you, it's a big issue. It also makes a case for increasing the streams of income in your life so that if you want to focus on one without having to starve to death in the meantime, you can do so as well. Don't try to make an unmotivated seller motivated. We've talked about picking low-hanging fruit. We beat it to death. I wished we would have pre-screened more deals in here. I'll try to make room next time to do so. I've already made that note. But I'll tell you, it's a different thing from being in here and being out there. It's easy for us to say. It's easy for us to remember in here. But when you're out there 6 weeks from now and you're looking at deals, ask yourself, is this low-hanging fruit? In fact, you ought to get one of them signs. That's an ugly sign. I'm going to get a prettier one than that. And incidentally, the less I do, the more I make. Well, that's my new one. You see that all over everything. We'll have T-shirts with that on it in Vegas, and I don't know what else. Caps, whatever. That's my new one. Don't personally guarantee big loans unless you're willing to risk 3 things. You're risking your credit, you're risking your assets, and you're risking your marriage. Every time you personally guarantee a debt. If you personally guarantee a debt, check, double check, and triple check that this deal is as it's represented. This deal makes good common sense. It is low-hanging fruit. The exit is reasonable, and you've removed all of the minefields you know how to remove. Because the minute you sign on that note, you're out of control till you pay off that debt. The bank now controls you. Don't get caught up in long, costly entanglements unless it's worth the grief and you're prepared to go to the distance. I cannot tell you how many people have submitted us vacant land on 20 acres that they want us to subdivide so we can make $200,000. You know, it ain't much work to subdivide 20 acres as it is 200 acres. There ain't much difference in time and effort and resources, and it's, 20 times the amount of money out of it. If you're going to get caught up in long, costly entanglements, and hey, you probably will for sure in some form of commercial property, condo conversions, for example. There's no such thing as a fast condo conversion. There's no such thing as a fast apartment turnaround or a fast subdivision development. At least make sure it's worth your while. That's all I'm saying. In fact, any of those that you get caught up in, they ought to set you up for life, or they're probably not worth the grief. Set you up for life. Because you literally are learning how to make life-changing money in this room. Your relatives are all going to hate you. Hopefully, they already do. Hopefully, except the ones in your house now. I don't want them to hate you. The rest of them, they're going to hate you. Don't develop unrealistic expectations. on the degree of difficulty or availability of financing as you see it. It ain't real till it happens. So don't put yourself in a position to where you suffer a big loss based on assumptions that you later to find out really weren't that realistic to begin with. Don't think private lenders are going to just chase you down to lend you 65% LTV loans on any project, much less vacant land, until you get one to cut you a check. Look at the market value of the property with a queer eye. Don't believe it till you see it sell for that amount. And make sure if it sells for considerably less, you still make a nice, big, handsome profit. Don't try to force the numbers so you can justify doing a deal that's marginal and is not low-hanging fruit to begin with. Be realistic with the numbers, and in fact, if anything, conservative. Don't enter into an agreement without the help of a good attorney. Hire the best attorney you can afford. For some of you, that is a giant leap just doing that. It's a giant leap committing yourself to pay somebody $250 an hour to watch over you and actually team up with them instead of seeing them occasionally when you're in the middle of a lawsuit or something. They should be part of your life. Don't risk big deposits without time to do your due diligence, and don't release them until you have. I got to make a decision whether I want to break that advice. Still haven't made that decision. That big old fancy building in New Orleans don't impress me all that much. $175,000 does impress me. We'll see. I don't know what I'm going to do. But that would be the very first time that I've ever put up a deposit on a commercial property where it was at risk regardless of what happens. So who knows? Maybe we need to do a groundbreaking deal here so we can talk about it. Maybe not. At least it's a good story if I lose the money, huh? God, these stories are expensive. Don't try to do tasks you're not qualified to do. You're not an engineer, you're not an appraiser, you're not a title searcher, you're not an attorney, construction person, you're not a property manager, and that's one I'm going to have to fight for sure. You get this big old beautiful asset, what's the first thing you're going to be inclined to do? Go there and personally get involved in the management and screw up everything. And of course, doing mundane tasks that you can pay others to do is not a new lesson for most of you, because I've been trying to get the words, the less I do, the more I make, into your heart and your mind for months or years now. And for some of you, I've succeeded. For others of you, I'll probably work the rest of my life at and still not get it done. But that simply means be very careful to what you do with your time. Watch closely how others waste your time. Be demanding of how you render your time. And don't let anybody assume that it's their time, not your time, to waste. Be careful how you handle the cell phone. Be careful how many hours you spend on the internet when you can get somebody to do that for $5 an hour. Be careful about how much time you spend looking at worthless projects you should have been screened out to begin with, and not waste the time traveling around looking at stuff. I've already had students get on an airplane and go look at properties before they even have a chance of succeeding. We don't do that crap. And I'm sure not going to go do it, and I don't expect anybody else to do it. We get all the facts, we get an offer accepted, or at least very, very close to where we know we're going to, before we ever bother spending a lot of time wasting money looking at properties that we're not even having a serious discussion about buying. Don't fall for the sales pitches from brokers and sellers who make a strong case why you should pay retail price for their property. It's in a hot area. It's going to go up quickly. When you buy a property because you think it's going to go up in value quickly, it's like being in Vegas standing at the crap table betting on the pass line. Some of the time you win, some of the time you lose. Either way, you probably will make more money on the crap table than buying and paying retail price for properties, betting on the come. Because I'll tell you what, you buy properties betting on the come, that means you're going to be buying stocks like I used to buy them. And whenever, anytime you wanted a good stock investment, you just bought anything except what I bought. If you want a stock to go down, it's a sure thing if I bought it. And guess what's going to happen when you go buying properties at retail price betting on inflation? The interest rates are going to start climbing immediately, and the inflation is going to stop. And you're going to get a lesson that many people got in 1986 when they were buying properties at retail price betting on inflation. Then the IRS come along and say, we're going to change the tax rules. You know, all that tax write-offs you were getting? Sorry, we decided we're going to take those away. And guess what happened to the property values then? Crashed. Boy, it was a great time for us, though. We were having a ball. RTC, Resolution Trust Corporation Company, takes over failing savings and loans. Man, there were properties all over the place. We would go to hotels and there'd be 50 of them auctioned off in one night, and one picture right after another. Auctioneer going crazy, and we're buying them right and left. And it was a blast. I mean, I enjoyed it. But you see, I wasn't one of those idiots that bought property at retail price, and mine wasn't up on the board after the bank foreclosed on it. Don't spend your time with worthless suspects. Pick the low-hanging fruit. And don't buy a deal where everything must work out perfectly for you to profit. Make good money with bad numbers. I tell you what, I live by that one. I really do. I look at that deal, and if I can't see how I can win, if the deal craps out on me, I don't want the deal. I don't want the deal. See, that's what worries me about that Emeco building. The building is pretty. It's 85% occupied. Question is, what is it worth as an office building? And since I don't have a clue, I don't know. I'm going to go find out real quick, though. Because Rock's numbers are way up here, but what are they hinged on? They're hinged on converting half of it to condos, aren't they? Well, what happens if you don't convert half of them to condos? Then what do you got? Retail price for an office building? I don't know. I'll know before I cut loose of $175,000, I'll tell you that. That's what bothers me about that project. That and the fact that it's non-refundable deposit. First time I've ever seen a contract have money, have a request for a non-refundable deposit, period, no matter what happens. No, it's already been signed. See, that's a problem. It got signed before. I never seen this contract before it got signed by Rock. You strike it out now, and they'll tell you to shove it, for sure. This is a REIT. You don't play those games, you know. You take it or you leave it. Well, I'll make a decision. Don't worry. Nobody's going to die, except Rock. Don't forget your partner in Washington, because he won't forget you. He loves you dearly. And he's going to get his money every time you make a profit. And way too many people blindly go into real estate deals and sell it and get a great big old check, never giving any thought to April the 15th. Then they go spend the money. And then they get this great big old tax bill. Then they got the IRS crawling down their back. And that takes the focus away from making more money, limits them, puts them in a stagnant position, penalties accruing at a high rate, taking away the ability to function. Pay your taxes. It's your legal responsibility to yourself and your family to reduce them as far as you can. But guess what, folks? In my world, you're paying taxes. And a bunch of them. In fact, they're going to make you throw up. You're going to get putrefied over the big old checks you're going to write to the IRS. You better get used to it. You're going to be writing bigger checks to the IRS than most people make all year on the best job in America. I hope you do. I hope you have to write such huge checks you need to take a Tylenol to get over it. Because there's still a bunch left over. I hope you help me support this country, because I can't possibly support it by myself, and I need all the help I can get. Don't develop unreasonable expectations of how much money you'll make and how fast, and please don't spend the money till you get it in your hands. The more you need the money, the bigger chance you got of not getting it. And the quicker you need it, the longer it will take to arrive. And if you need money like you need oxygen, you're dead. You should run your business where getting that next check is not a critical blow if it doesn't happen. That way, when it comes, it's party time, and it's a good day, and you feel really good. And I'll tell you something else. I mean, this is just the nature of the beast. When you back yourself into a position to where you just got to have the money or you got to have the closing, it sours everything else around it. You start making bad decisions. You start putting pressure on people and making them wonder what's up here. You start acting like a desperate person, creating doubt with everybody you're dealing with. And it could easily kill the deal, especially if your credibility is an issue. Don't put yourself in a position to where you have to have the check or it's a life-threatening situation. Assume the check isn't coming, and that'll make it a lot easier to tolerate if it doesn't come. In fact, I never assume the check's coming. You know, I'm supposed to be closing that big line of credit next week out here. I've got a commitment letter in my briefcase. I watched the man sign it. But I can assure you, if it doesn't close, I'm going to do just fine. I'm counting on it. But as many disappointments and heartbreaks that I've had in my career, you know what? I'm not even going to beat the wife and kick the dog if it doesn't happen. Just a grandchild. I'll live with it. We'll deal with it. Don't try to absorb all this stuff all at one time, because you're not going to make it happen. There's a lot of stuff. We went over a lot of stuff, didn't we? Yeah. And who got it all? Yeah, right. Let me look at these tests. We'll see. Did we cover everything that ever needs to be covered in the world of commercial? No. Did I tell you from the very beginning we weren't? Yes. I could take any one of the subjects that we discussed and probably do an all-day seminar on it. I could easily take any type of commercial property that's out there and build a whole week-long boot camp on it. But I'm not gonna. I'm going to trust that if you've been schooled with the basics and you know how to go buy properties and reduce the risk and you know how to raise the capital and now where to get the capital. Do you all know where to get the capital from? Now you get two sources of it right up here, and you got a whole book full of it here. If you know how to maneuver enough to go get some deals under contract, to determine the difference between a deal and a dud, and get yourself into it, and then you're strong enough and persistent enough to work details out and understand that you're going to make mistakes the whole way through, and then pretty soon you're going to get better and better and better, and look back, and a year from now you're going to be so smart you can't even hardly stand yourself. You're certainly going to become the rising stars and the experts at a very fast pace if you persist on doing what you learn to do here. And there's no doubt in my mind that you're all going to make more money than you ever made in your entire life by doing the things that we've discussed here and you've seen materialize right before your face. So I'm going to leave that up to you and hope that I'm going to get some huge letters from you. Well, not small letters, but huge checks on huge deals. All right, am I going to get them? Yes. Okay, good. I'm also hoping that I'm going to get some partnership deals from you. Many of them we've already taken. You know, nothing would please me more than to share deals with you guys then we both can brag. And of course, I'm going to use you as examples and tell others what you've done. That is a condition, you know, that I get to brag about you. So I hope I can brag about all of you, because a boot camp is a terrible thing to waste. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.